Welcome to the Northeast Kingdom Voice. I'm your host, Scott Wheeler. Today's guest is no stranger to the show. He is Steve Wright, the general manager of the Jay Peak Resort. He's here today to announce that snow is on its way.
It's always on its way. Snow's always on its way.
Well, you know it is. You do know as we record, it's July, which means Barton Fair is right around the corner. And you've lived here long enough. When somebody says Barton Fair is almost here, what does that mean?
It means I'm going to be going to the Barton Fair with my kids here pretty soon.
And it also means winter's on its way.
Yes, that's the last gasp of summer usually, right?
Right. So you finally get rid of all your snow on the mountain.
We're through all of it at this point. What's today? Today's middle of July.
Right.
And yeah, we're done. We're into wedding season up there right now. We've got 45 or 50 weddings up there this season. We've got a bunch of conference business. We've got some concert and music business that's about to start up here. Yeah, we're looking forward to a good summer. We've got that happening down in Newport too. Some music starting here tonight, as a matter of fact, as we go to edit this.
Right. And I think with your weddings, what you once talked about, it's you guarantee the marriage will last or their money back.
Yeah, we're willing to give them their money back. Absolutely. We've got a 100% success rate so far, at least since I've been up there. So.
Okay. But you've had, ever since, I've joked to you, I said, how do you do it? Ever since you've been the general manager, I know you've been up there for years, but you've been the general manager for a couple of years. Every year you have been able to make massive amounts of snow. Do you personally have any, are you doing this, or is that luck of the draw?
It's definitely all me. It is. No, I mean, we actually last year we had we can make snow. We can make as much snow as the temperatures and conditions allow, but in terms of natural snow, a couple of years ago we had a super deep year. Then this past year we had some troubles with some super cold temps, and there was a lack of snow there for a little bit until about the first or second week of March. Then we got 80 inches of snow in about 10 days, and that really turned the season around for us.
Right. So it was a pretty good year overall.
We did it. We had a great year. I mean, the year prior was the most successful in our history in terms of top line revenue and profit. So we weren't expecting that for last year, obviously, but we came pretty close. And considering we had 2 or 3 days where we shut the mountain down altogether, which hasn't happened in Jay Peak's history because of cold and because of wind. So to have that happen during our holiday weeks and have a lack of snow during most, if not all, of our holiday weeks, and to still come out with a year that approached our best year ever was a big success story for us, I think.
Do you think part of that is because you're basically a four-season resort, which includes your water park, so it wasn't a washout for those people who went to the mountain. Maybe they didn't ski and board, but they...
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple of things at play. That certainly helps. That when the weather goes bad and we can't generate lift ticket revenue, that we have other things for people to do. But I also think that the shoulder seasons and the shoulder period, being from the beginning of our fiscal year, which is May 1st, right up until that period that you get into the holidays, that period now is a lot more financially successful for us than it has been in the past. That traditionally has been a period where, like other ski resorts, we start to dig a hole in terms of our costs and expenses, and then we use the rest of the ski season to dig out of that. Now that period is being filled with hockey tournaments and music and conference business and things like that, and expanding into our soccer fields, which we can talk about in a little bit.
And you also have another, I know it's very popular, you have your Climbing Center and your movie theater.
Yep, Clips and Reels, that's definitely a part of it. It's, we've got 20 or so climbing routes and a movie theater in there, a little food and beverage. So it's all part of a bigger picture of trying to drive traffic into those traditionally slow periods for us,
Do you know, I still run into people who, many of them have been born and raised here. They have never been to Jay Peak, or they haven't been up there in recent years, and they don't know that it's love it or hate it, Jay Peak is there, and it's big. and it attracts people from all over the world. There's so much going on up there. But, I tell people, even if you're just going to go up and walk through the place, just go see it, because there's so many opportunities. My relatives, their ancestral roots were from here, as in some of my relatives came up here. My cousins and I weren't born here, but their ancestral roots are here, and they went up there to the water slide and everything on some of the days, and they loved it.
Yeah, I took some folks up the other day from Newport who had been up there since we built Tram House Lodge back in 2008, but hadn't gone up there since then, and they were really surprised at how much has grown up around there and the level of business. We had yesterday. We had quite a few school groups up there. We had a big state conference up there. We actually had a midweek wedding, so. To have it be that busy in the middle of July is not something that the local folks expect to come on campus and see. So that can be surprising, too.
So tell me, I remember, I don't know if it was before you were there, for a couple years, it seemed like only a couple years, you had mountain biking at the mountain where you went up by train. Were you there?
No,
yeah.
that might have been 20, 25 years ago that we last did that. Yeah, and I think that once we get into a new owner-operator, that may be something that gets considered. But right now, we're really focusing on developing pieces of business that drive lodging occupancy. That's really kind of where our focus is. And that's why, the piece that we've started construction on this summer, these 2 synthetic turf recreation fields down at the Inglenook property, which we own. Those are in a state of construction right now. Those should be finished by just after Labor Day. And then we're going to use the same model that we have in our hockey rink there to drive soccer, lacrosse, field hockey, camps up to those fields, and to do tournaments on the weekends, camps during the midweek, and then have those tournaments and camps use the campus at Jay for lodging and food and beverage, and to use the water park and climbing center and things like that.
Yeah, so you're trying to continue to transform yourself more into that 4-season resort, because I run into some people who say, well, I wish it was Jay of yesterday, rustic, but from what I understand is if you'd stayed at that model, well, maybe you would have made it, but it was getting tougher all the time to be able to run to operate the mountain as a single season resort ski area.
Yeah, I mean, as other resorts in the in the industry, sometimes rustic, sometimes that adjective can be replaced with closed too. So you have to evolve your business like any other business. What a business looked like 35 years ago. In most cases, is not what that business looks like today. If that business is still in business, if you don't change, you.
Now you've lived here a long time. I've lived here all my life, and it's interesting how people here accept change. I don't mean just the people who were born and raised here, but even some people who have settled here and maybe have lived here for even decades. Some people just they have a hard time accepting change, and I look at what's going on at Jay, and I look at what's going on in Newport, and I hear that Jay Peak is taking the reason Newport is struggling is Jay Peak is sucking all the business away from downtown, and Jay Peak doesn't give anything in return. Now, I personally know that's not right, but do you hear that?
I don't. I mean, I every once in a while, you and I will connect on something that you've heard, but I think that that's the exception and not the rule. I mean, I'm on countless boards down here in Newport. I've lived in Newport for 15 years. We've participated, both my family and the resort, in different things geared towards trying to revitalize the town, trying to help the town, and we've put a lot of Jay Peak's assets and energy to work to do that as well. So, and I think most people recognize that. But I think it's an easy soundbite to latch onto.
But that's it. But I actually hear it more often than you might think. Yeah. But it's usually of the chronic complainers who just I think it's a good way. I think it's a good way to justify your own failings.
Yeah, absolutely.
And because I do know JP does a lot for the community. What I used to tell Bill, and I think this is true for you, is you are willing to help anybody who's willing to help themselves. Is you don't want to invest in something that where the people don't want to invest in themselves.
Yeah, I mean, for the bigger contributions, yeah, I mean, we would expect to see, some entity or organization, working alongside us to help improve whatever it is that they need to improve. But, part of it too is that, every time, the Troy Little League or some other kids group comes to us looking for a couple of $100 to help offset uniform costs, and we say yes to it because we chronically say yes to these things. We're not going to do a press release about it either. We're not going to take an ad out saying we donated $100 to buy uniforms for the Troy Little League. I mean, it just isn't something that it sort of soils the experience when we do that. And I've talked with some people who say, well, you guys should do more to tell the world what it is that you're doing. And I think we've tried to make an effort to do that with some of the bigger projects, like we helped the Newport Mesh Wireless project here, this end of Newport, trying to help Diane Peel and that good organization get internet access to folks that don't have it down here, or some of the things that we've done with Wednesdays on the Waterfront, trying to support that, which incidentally starts tonight.
And by the way, I commend you. Because I think that's a great thing. And last year, not only in the winter are you able to create snow, last year you helped create a flawless Wednesday series, not one drop of rain.
Yeah, I mean, really, that was Andrea and Vera that put on that whole event, and we sponsored one of the nights, but I don't know what the hell that they did, but they literally had 6 weeks of flawless weather, and as we shoot this today, Wednesday the 11th, is that what today is?
Something like that.
But tonight is the first night of Wednesdays on the Waterfront with ETA playing down there, and if you look out the window here at the studios, it's beautiful out, and it's going to be beautiful tonight. So that officially would be 7 in a row for them. One of the other things that we're doing here with ISO Marks and Pam Lads, we're putting together this Friday night shuffle that we've done that JPEAK is sponsoring, and it's an effort to have all the businesses in and around Main Street open up a little bit later on Friday night, have some activities going on in their restaurants and shops, and then try to get some JPEAK guests by virtue of our shuttles to get them to come down and experience Newport on a Friday night.
Right now, it's too bad. Right here in the middle of summer, poor Exie and crew at the Thai restaurant. She's been back and forth with me. We've been communicating to help. They're stuck over and they're in a paperwork nightmare.
Yeah,
and
that's literally the only place that my 13-year-old daughter will go out to eat in and around here. Or she gives us the least amount of hassle with that. So not having that as an option here in the month of June, July, and August has been a problem for the Wright family.
And you do know like that Exie and crew has created a draw to downtown Newport. Is they are now, when they first took over that business, my wife and I used to sit there with Exie, and at the time it was the language barrier, but there was hardly anybody else there. Now it is a destination where people actually come up from Burlington, they come from Canada, and now, well, she's kind of stuck over in Thailand, but she's going to be back.
Yeah, I hope they get that fixed there pretty soon. That'll be good to have them back.
So let's talk. So the mountain's doing pretty good, and we're talking about Newport. How do you see Newport doing right now?
Well, I think that there's, from my vantage point of running, the biggest business in the region, but also as a citizen of Newport, I think there's a lot to be positive about. I mean, I kind of default to that mode anyway and look for that. But there's, I talked with you a bit about this before. There's so many people in this town that have good energy around them that put energy into supporting different programs and events in and around Newport to try to increase that positive optic. They're infallible in how they approach this community and the support of it. And I think that the noise and the drumbeat that they're creating is starting to outweigh those folks that are sort of stuck in this chronic, oh God, we can't change mode. You know?
Yeah, and I look at because I think we have a similar mindset. Is I take the negative and I make it positive. Is okay. You can't talk about Newport without the EB5 thing. That whole block is gone. Well, that's horrible. It's gone. And I think that was a real kick to the movers and shakers of Newport, even the diehard supporters. But then the questionable leadership that has come up within the city has also proved problematic. But I think what it's done, both things, has actually, we've able to dig back into ourselves and realize that money does not fall from heaven, that you can't rely on any form of leadership anywhere, whether it's national, state, and local, to do the job for you. And I think we've regained a momentum, realizing that it's us who's going to make the difference. And I see, like, that waterfront series, outstanding. You go down to Dina's, east side, they're, in the summer, they're bustling. Some people accuse me of having rose-colored glasses. I look at Main Street and I think, there's some real sad things. There's the open storefronts, but then there's just, the events. The Centennial went off pretty
That's great.
nicely.
I thought they did a great job with the Centennial. Yeah, I mean, how long are you supposed to mourn? How long are people supposed to sort of look at the more negative aspects of Newport and stay focused on those negative aspects? Nothing changes. I mean, I for one, and I'm like you in this aspect, is there's only so much of that you can absorb and not have it ruin and creep into every other corner of your life. So why wouldn't you want to contribute and participate in something that is going to integrate positive change, as opposed to getting stuck on what is at the moment and how we got there? Because you're right. This place is going to change by virtue of how well the citizenry drives the change. There is no leadership. There is no amount of money that's going to change this in and of itself. It's the people that enact change.
Right. And one thing I do like, and I'm not sure where we fall. We're not like ancient, but we're not. We're in there. You're 50. I'm a couple of years older than you, but it's nice.
So you're gonna put me at 50, and you're just a couple of years older. You're gonna throw that out
well,
there.
actually, technically 3.
All right.
There, you're gonna push me there.
Thank you. I'm 51 in a week. So.
And but the thing is, it's nice to see some youth. As in, I don't even know what youth is, but like the two women who are doing the music series.
Andrea,
There's some younger people than us, who are, I think, starting to step up to the plate. And
Allie Howell.
Yeah.
Allie, Sonny Naughton. There are lots of young folks who are great people, who have fantastic energy, who have seemingly a boundless amount of time to put into these projects and different energies here and around town. That you're right. It isn't just the 50 and older crowd. There are younger folks that are really driving this.
Right.
It's great to see.
And there's a point. I'm not saying at any age you should step totally away, but I think there is a point where the leaders need to accept, because I think in small town America, whether it's Newport, whether it's someplace across the country, I think small town politics can be they can be set in their ways too, and I think we need to welcome and embrace the younger generations. We got some. You look at the people who hosted the bike races in Newport. It was 1 year deal. They went out to East Burke, and now they're happening things.
Blowing up, yeah.
But I see a lot of positive.
I think that there needs to be some alignment between, like we said, all of this good young energy in the community that are trying to do positive things, and that alignment has to be with the town fathers and mothers in politics, where they support each other and not creating situations where you've got one body politic making it difficult for the other to enact that change that we talked about. There has to be alignment with what's happening there, and I think the way to do that is to maybe there needs to be some younger faces in the political body as well, not just in that grassroots energy that is trying to make things happen.
No, I agree. It's time.
And I don't even necessarily mean age in terms, when we talk about youth, it can just be a mentality and an openness to new ideas and new approaches and new ways of driving that energy in the community.
Absolutely. We talked about that before the show. Is like I had a young woman up here that I served with in the State House, and she's working on a project. Keisha Ram, people might remember her as working, running for the lieutenant governor for 2 years ago. She didn't. She failed at that, but she served several years. And when she began, she was one of the youngest people to ever serve in the Vermont House, and she's up here. And we had a lunch out on the deck at the east side. She had the opportunity to chat with Dina Gray. Dina Gray might be older than us, but she has more energy and more wisdom and more vision than probably you and I put together. And so, in other words, you're right.
Age is not always a good indicator of an openness to ideas. Just because you're over 50 years old doesn't mean you're shut down to new ideas, and conversely, just because you're 22 doesn't mean that you can't be set in a certain way either.
Or sometimes, and sometimes you need to. The younger ones do need these older people, especially ones that have a lot of wisdom and foresight. They need to say, okay, this is a great idea, but let's talk about
strategy and how do we get
money.
And
money, because great ideas a lot of times cost a great amount of money, but not always. So what else do you envision for the relationship between the mountain and Newport?
Well, we continue to look for opportunities to support the town and support the growth here. I mean, it's not just myself, but we've got a good index of employees up there whose home base is either directly in Newport or in one of the surrounding communities that succeeds or fails by virtue of how well Newport does. So, it's in our best interest to support those things that our employees are interested in. So,
I've told you this before, is either your workers are happy or they can fake it. Because when I'm up there, everybody seems happy, and I always use him for an example.
Yeah.
I love running into Tom Howell.
Yeah.
I think
he's happy.
Yeah,
Tom's
and I
happy.
think he was a state trooper for years. I think that when it's time for him to go, you're going to have to drag him off that mountain, kicking and screaming, because he seems to be so happy.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've done a pretty good job up there, creating programs. And events and benefit packages for the employees that keep them happy. I mean, I think Tom would be happy in a rainstorm, so he's not somebody that's impacted by that. He's always pretty happy. But for other folks, we've had to change our wage scale, and we've had to change our benefit package in order to be able to retain the good people that we have and to be able to attract the good people that we need. It's a tough labor market that we're in, and JP takes upwards of 1,500 employees to make it go when we're fully cranked in the winter. So we've got to make sure that in that ski resort market, in that labor market, that we're very competitive.
I can tell you, I run into very few sizable employers who are not at least casually looking for new people, but they're saying that from what I understand, we're about at 100% employment for the people who want to work.
That's for the people that want to work is always the add-on piece for that, because we're always in sort of aggressive hiring mode. There is no time where we aren't looking for people. Now, the last 2 years have been the most successful hiring periods that we've ever had up there. But we've also needed more spots filled in the last 2 years than ever before either. So we have to be successful. We have to be in an active recruitment mode almost 12 months a year right now. And still, even in that active recruitment mode, we have to be out looking for foreign workers to help do some of the jobs there. Quite frankly, we can't find enough people to work in our housekeeping departments or work in maintenance or work in janitorial. And our wage scale has gone up tremendously. We have only 2 or 3% of our jobs up there are at minimum wage now. The rest of our jobs, the lion's share of our jobs, are north of what minimum wage is. Right. And then when you add benefits and everything else on top of that, there are good positions there. But people need to want to work as well.
Right. No, and you also have to, because we've talked about on previous shows, you have to really be able to aim to please, because you have customers now who come from all over the world, and they have, gone are the days of low expectations, and you cater to a pretty diverse group of people.
Yeah, I mean, the J Peak of 16 years ago when I started, was largely just a ski and snowboard spot with a little bit of lodging, a little bit of food and beverage, and most of the folks that were coming here had an expectation of, listen, I want to be able to get up the hill, I want to be able to ride, and then I'm going to go home. That has changed wholesale, and not only the traveler to J Peak, but the vacation traveler in general their expectations have been tuned differently in the last dozen years. So now we get an index of traveler that really, like you said, really has an expectation that, and I think justifiably so, has an expectation that if they're going to spend a couple of $1,000 on a vacation, they want to be treated in a way that they expect and have memories generated that are worth what they've spent.
The one thing I try to remind people of all calibers, of no matter what, is we are in the spotlight of the media quite a bit now. I don't mean just like Burlington media. I mean, I get contacted now, not to necessarily interview me, but they're looking for people to interview because I'm so out there in social media. People will contact me.
You are definitely out there.
Yeah, and they will contact me, say, okay, we're looking to do a story on this, and who can we talk to? And so you might see my face on the History Channel or something, but a lot of times it's not my face. I direct people to the right resources. There is so much interest in the Northeast Kingdom.
Yeah.
And so when you go on TV and you're boo-hooing about your plight, it's unbecoming. I'm not saying pie in the sky attitude, but the world is watching us. Let's show our best. That's what I tell people. People don't realize, like, for example, Derby Line. I often tell my friends in Derby Line, do you know how far reporters are coming, or journalists or visitors are coming to see those the flower pots at the border? You and I take it for granted. Yeah. I'm going to tell you, I've brought up the South Koreans up there, because they came way up from Washington, D.C., the Korean broadcast system, or I believe it is. They came up way from Washington, D.C. to do a show right in front of those flower pots, because I asked them, North Korean border, if you were standing this close to the North Korean border, what would you be doing? They said, we'd be being dead.
You wouldn't be smelling flowers, that's for sure.
And so what I'm saying is, there's so much positive. People can say I have rose-colored glasses, so be it. But maybe it's because I get to see the media in the real media. Well, when I say the real, is the big world media. We're getting all this attention. Let's make the best of it.
Well, I think part of it too is that that there has been an interest in the hospitality industry and the vacation markets of these authentic experiences, right? Travelers and vacationers having authentic experiences, not going to an all-inclusive resort and laying in the sand for a week, which I support as well, mind you. But really looking for these real experiences. They're going to go on a vacation and really become and integrate themselves into the community for a week and poke around and look at things that are real. So that dovetails really well, I think, into what's happening here in the Newport community and the surrounding communities. This is a real working community. This isn't necessarily something that's looked at as a traditional vacation destination, but because of that interest in these authentic experiences, it sort of has the opportunity to turn into one.
Exactly. But like, as you know, I just published my book about the history of Newport. Totally took me by surprise. I've been just like swamped by people who, I think we're up to like 33 states they're being delivered to.
Humble brag. All right.
A lot of the people were from here, or their families from here. They're looking for people have a thirst for this real, because people, I think, know, for right or wrong, I really like authenticity, good and bad. But people are yearning for that. And all I got to say is my history book on Jay Peak, which comes out this year, I hope it can be the same seller.
Yeah, I'm sure it will be.
I think people are looking for these authentic communities, these authentic experiences.
I agree. I mean, I think it expands too to the extent that our world fills up with these things that are inauthentic or fake, or you know what I mean. Whether it's in politics or in just in the environment in general, are these experiences that feel unreal. That to the extent that increases, there's going to be an even bigger opportunity for those experiences that are real and authentic to thrive. And that's where I think, like I said, that's where it dovetails into what we're doing here in this town.
Okay, we're almost out of time here. But the one thing I'm very seldom ahead of the curve. Maybe that's why I write history for a living, because I'm so far behind. But for the last, maybe it's because I wrote my first book, Rum Runners and Revenuers, Prohibition in Vermont. I did that maybe 20 years ago. Ever since then, I've been saying, hey, people ought to start, opening up these prohibition-themed eateries and bars, and they'll become destinations. Well, somebody must have heard my idea, because they're now sweeping the nation. And I had the opportunity to recently go to one in Barrie, and since you're since Jay has the border there, I think the next time you open a bar, I think I know somebody who's sitting about 3 feet from you, who has probably the largest collection of memorabilia for photos of Vermont, of the nation prohibition. I think it would be great to...
Prohibition themed, okay.
Yeah, it makes sense. You're right on the border.
And given what's happening in our various economies, it might not even have to be prohibition of alcohol. Maybe it can be the prohibition of something else.
Well, to tell you the truth is, there's at some point, who knows, there might be a book in the works on that.
Yeah.
But, hey, so final words.
Well, I mean, what we haven't really talked about is the sale of Jay, which, has sort of been pending for 2 or 3 years now. We're in the process of working with a broker who will ultimately end up brokering the sale to whoever buys it. It could be one of the bigger players like Vail or Alterra, which is sort of an amalgamation with the old Intrawest resorts, or it could be somebody that you or I have no idea about at this point. Could be some independent investor. But we will have at least another season, the one that's in front of us now, under the existing receivership organization, and then we'll see after that. But it's an exciting time up there. I think that we're poised to. We're through our growth period, so to speak. So we're in an interesting period now where we're taking the assets that we have developed and really trying to refine them, really trying to take a look at the business units and make the best possible decisions that we can on behalf of our P&L, but also on behalf of the employees up there, and doing right things on their behalf. And we can do that when financially we're successful. So it's an interesting time where we're not in this hustling growth period. We're really trying to sharpen the edges on the things that we've built. So it's somebody new that comes in here will ultimately take a look at that and continue to help us refine those things and make some of the assets that we have even better. So we're looking forward to it.
Well, I think you are doing a great job, and I've told you this before. I think one of the best things they did during this transition period between owners was keep you on. Okay. You're a known commodity. You're a respected person, and you don't mince words.
No, I know. So thank you, Scott. I appreciate you having me on.
Right. And thank you to the viewers for tuning in to another segment of the Northeast Kingdom Voice.